All right. Hi, welcome. I'm gonna do some sound before we get going. So you might want to turn it down if you're listening later. All right, 2:22, 33 seconds in. If that number means anything to you. So I'm coming on today because one, we're coming up on Halloween. Two, because it's that season. And three, because I've been seeing things online about witches, Halloween, the Druids. And so I wanted to talk about some of that and bring some clarification. So, witches. The word witches originates from the word wise. So when you come to the word like witchcraft, it actually means wisecraft. Okay. And there is, I can't remember the goddess's name, but we're going in today about a lot of things, especially when it comes to women and the beginnings of things and how it affects the whole world, the whole like mindset, everything. Anyhow, there's a goddess who is known for flying around on a broom and delivering gifts to children. Okay, so where we get this witches flying around on brooms, this is an old tale, and it was to deliver gifts, is the story. Now, some of the things I started looking up last night was that this morning? I can't remember. Where law began, because I had watched a video talking about where law originated, the laws that we see today, and it originated with the hunting down and persecuting of witches. Okay, so more recently, I saw a little short video of somebody speaking out that there are witches everywhere. And I want to say that's probably true, but not in the way that okay. And then also it's like Christians and witches, or religious people and witches. And so I'm just going to do a little religious background, a little religious history, so that we can bring a little clarification maybe, or at least some awareness to witches, witchcraft, and this time of year. So this time of year is also known as harvest. And I do want to go into the Wicker Man right now and the Druids, because I also saw a video of somebody talking about the Wicker Man, speaking about Burning Man in the desert, which I have not been to. It doesn't sound like something I'd want to go to, but it is a type of ritual. And let's just say, for the most part, most things in our lives are ritualistic, something that's repeated, and then we give it energy or we give it a meaning. So I had heard that the Druids would put people inside the Wicker Man and light it on fire as punishment. And I was like, what? Because from my research, Druids are some of the most peaceful, ancient beings, besides a lot of the indigenous that I've heard of, and that their magic was very nature based. So I did a little research, and it turns out that that's a story. And then the person who wrote the story about the story, or that it's possibly a story, because wicker is like straw. It's like a hard straw. And once it's lit on fire, it almost melts. So if there were people inside the wicker, this Wicker Man, inside like a wicker basket type of thing, they would eventually be able to get out. They wouldn't actually burn inside of it. The straw and wicker doesn't burn like wood does, like they used to do burning witches. So I have a theory as I was thinking, as I was reading that and I was thinking about it, my theory is that maybe it was actual ritual of kind of like living through fire cleansing. Maybe it was a ritual for the next warlock or shaman within the Druid community. I don't know. I don't know a lot about the Druids other than what I've read about them when it comes to like runes, the symbols that people use for divination. And so I just wanted to share that because I think it's really crappy when we start demonizing groups of people, especially during this time of year, to like emphasize wickedness and evil when those who are teaching these things, and I'm not saying these people specifically that made these videos, but in giant groups like Christianity in the old days, what they did to prove that you were a witch was far worse than being put in a wicker man. I mean, literally horrible things. And I mean, just really just psychopathic things. And basically being a woman, just being a woman would make you a witch. If you had freckles on your arm, if you had an animal, if you sang, if you talked to other women, I mean, if you had red hair, if you had black hair, if you had blonde hair, if you were trying to change your hair, if you were cooking something, if you were gathering herbs. I mean, I'm not telling you this to like, I'm just showing like how we perceive like good and evil and how we get scared into it. Okay. So, witches, the Druids. Okay. In the video, I also talk about like the goddess and New Age. And so witches and the goddess has also kind of been mixed together. So as more and more women and even men are coming out talking about like the Great Mother or the divine goddess, or the divine feminine energy, there's this backlash of don't believe in the New Age stuff because it is the devil's way of getting people to come to New Age. Well, I'm just going to borrow a quote from most religions, which is there is nothing new under the sun. Like we are remembering. If there's anything that seems new age, it's because there's a remembrance. So when it comes to tongues, a light language, okay, when it comes to sound therapy, these are all old ways that were either hidden from us or mistaught, not taught at all, and or only given to certain groups of people. So now it's becoming more known. And goddess is related to the beginnings. This is found out. I mean, like I said, who knows if it's true because people write what they want to write sometimes. But I did find a video online about the goddess timeline, which is pretty awesome. And then this book is featured in that same video. It's like a lot of the information comes from this book, actually. I'll link it in the description after I finish the video. But there's so many things that you can see from that timeline to now that have been carried over, that are part of major religions, and certain things that are hidden that are now coming to light. Okay, and then the more recent one is all the videos about how evil Halloween is, which is curious because do you know what Halloween means? It means All Hallows Eve. All Hallows Eve is a celebration, is a Christian celebration, a Catholic celebration. So I took some pictures so I could go quickly as possible during the live. Let's see here. And I did all kinds of research. Okay, Halloween It's All Hallows Eve, a holiday observed on October 31st, the evening before All Saints' Day or All Hallows Day. The celebration marks the day before the Western Christian feast of All Saints and initiates the season of All Hallowtide, which lasts 3 days and concludes with All Souls' Day. So, my theory is that Dias de las Muertas is, so I think there were some indigenous traditions that were already here, because in indigenous cultures, you will find that they have ritualistic like mourning, where the tribe or the women will kind of facilitate a day or time of grieving. During harvest, it's also starting to get darker on the northern hemisphere, or this side of depending on if you think it's round or flat, because that's a whole thing now. And let's see. Oh, and then the saying that the veil is thinner. I'm wondering if there's a connection between this Christian holiday and Dias de los Muertos, because a lot of what they do is very similar to that, where they venerate those who have passed over, specifically saints, and those known and unknown that have made it to heaven. And then the All Souls Day is about praying for those who might still be in purgatory. So, and then certain things are left for them if they are still in purgatory. Isn't that interesting? Has anybody ever really learned this about Halloween? I didn't. I mean, I knew it meant All Hallows Eve, but I didn't put together the All Souls Day, and I didn't put together what it actually meant. I didn't actually look that up. So what's interesting is, this is what it made me think of. So when I was younger, there were movies like The Exorcist and The Omen. What other movie? There was another one that was pretty creepy, scary, like demonic. Well, it all started with some preacher or some Catholic church. And I used to think, well, what is it about the knowings of the Catholic Church that we're watching movies where something wicked is happening as well? So I don't know if okay. Because why do we have the jack-o'-lanterns? Why do we dress up? Why do we do those things? So my theory is that maybe because there's not a lot of information about the actual celebration of All Hallows Eve. But my theory is that those things were that two things. Maybe the witches, like getting rid of witches, or maybe scaring people into the idea of witches and witchcraft. So if we're celebrating the day before All Saints' Day, then you would want to put maybe something scary out to scare away anything that might want to hinder All Saints' Day. I don't know, but it's a little, it doesn't really say how it changed into the holiday where we're trick-or-treating and wearing costumes and such like that. So I've just come up with, I'm just guessing mostly. I'll do a little more research. Okay, so that leads me into St. Peter. And I've talked a little bit about this before in one of my other videos, where I mention the mathematician and philosopher Hypatia. I wonder if that's like a hypotenuse. I wonder if that's where we got that from. It probably is. That probably is where we got that from. Anyways, she's a Greek mathematician. She went through Egypt, and there was a movie made about her. And I was just in awe because during the time when she was murdered, because She was murdered for basically speaking out against the religions, wanting to use philosophy as more of a way to remedy and help things than picking a side, because at that time it was like the Jews against the Christians. Well, when she spoke up, Peter of something starts with an A, who is now Saint Peter, basically went against what she said and convinced everyone in the, I would say, like, group of clergy to dismiss her from her teachings. And she taught Socrates, dismissed her from her teachings, and had her stoned to death and stripped naked because of what she was saying. So with that information, I also found that predating Hypatia is Pandrosian. Pandrosian. Is that like Pandora's box? Pandrosian. So there's no date of her and there's no photos, but she's pre-Plato. And we venerate, okay, so I mentioned this because we started with the witches, and this all kind of leads into like law and even indigenous peoples, but we're taught what a saint is, but the saint is decided by the papal or the basically the Pope and those of the Catholic Church. So Saint Peter, who actually killed a lot of Jews and killed Hypatia, was venerated to a saint. So as we go into All Hallows Eve, this is where I'm wondering, like, where is the like switch? How did we switch? Okay. Then I started looking up. How did I get to this? Oh, because while I was looking up Pandrosian. I mean, both of these names. Why didn't I get that like hypotenuse? I'm almost willing to bet that she came up with that. That's her name. Oh, and the Pandoroisen, who was a female, was basically pre-Hypatia, who was she was given the veneration of creating like mathematics and astrology. But we aren't taught this. But I looked it up. Okay. Then, so to lead to, where was I looking? I was looking up, where she lived. And she's from Cyrene, Libya, or Kyrene, Libya. And I looked that up because we have the sirens, right? And it's spelled almost the same way, except with a C or a K. And this is where I go back I talk about languages and how certain sounds have been changed, or certain letters sounds have been changed, or, slightly corrected depending on who is saying it. What was I looking up? I was looking up something about Hebrew because of Hypatia. But for some reason, I think I was looking at the Cyrene, Libya. Because where did the Torah come from? I was interested in where the Torah came from, because I've been saying it's a woman's name. It's not. It's not a woman's name. It's very interesting what the Torah means. It means a law. It also means not being able to actually make order out of anything. But the writings were handed down to Moses. Now, if you don't know, I was adopted, and while I was searching for my biological mother, I did some research on someone who is of the Yakima indigenous tribe who went through the schools and was basically taken away from their culture and then found their way home. Well, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of the Yakima Indians' last names are Moses. And we're not even saying it right. It's like Mosias or Moasis. And there in the Sibyl's book, it has been said that Moses was female. So if the information was handed down to Moses, I believe, regardless whether male or female, that Moses was indigenous. I believe that Mount Sinai is actually, so we've talked about how Utah is part of the Bible. I'm starting to theorize also so is the Grand Canyon. And my theory is that is actually one of the main plots, or not plots, but places in the biblical ancient. And there's a long time ago, somebody had said that they found like Egyptian writing and Egyptian looking mummies in the Grand Canyon and caves in the Grand Canyon. I also heard a long time ago that through the Grand Canyon are tunnels that lead to all over around the world. It's probably true. So while I was looking up that information, it led me to Cyrene, Libya, and it talked about how that name got changed, but it showed me that, again, we go back to the females, we go back to the mothers or the great teachers, and through time, those are shifted or just hidden. And then I want to give you guys little side notes. So these are some things. This whole video is not on Patreon because I'm live. But on Patreon, I did do a short video where I did a Sibyl's oraculum reading. And one of the cards that came out was rhythm. But rhythm in Latin is numero. So I wanted to mention that because we talked about gematria before. You might hear it pronounced gematria. Also, English is a Hebrew word. Gematria is a Hebrew word. Cyrene or Kyrene or Kabbalah is a Hebrew word. And, so there's, yeah. Okay. Moses, the indigenous. Okay. So it kind of brings me back to witches and what is called New Age and demonizing things, because in the Americas, as I would say, as the country became more populated with non-indigenous peoples, more and more laws were created to keep indigenous peoples from practicing their religion. And my theory is that this is also where witches got grander and more, because you will see some photos of witches with feathers, a certain little talisman or talus pouches, or medicine bag. And so my ultimate big theory is that throughout time and through history and certain teachings, again, the mother has been pulled out. The goddess creator theory has been removed, and what has been replaced is somewhat of a censored and guided repetition of energy that is actually given to people and places rather than to the planet and to each other. So if you want to call that New Age and you want to call it witchy and wicked, then I guess you can do that. I don't think it makes much sense. And in one of the comments after watching this gentleman talk about witches are everywhere, and in the Bible it says not to suffer a witch. So one of the comments was, angels told me witches are everywhere. And I just kind of laughed, because if we were actually going through witch trials, that person would also be called a witch. You're talking to angels? Oh, then you must have slept with the devil to get that power to talk to angels. Did you know that? You know what I mean? So when I don't know, I just wanted to point these things out, because it seems as though there's this agenda, like the next agenda is like anti-witches and anti-New Age. Well, it's not New Age. It's remembering. And it's okay to ask questions, and it's okay to look deeper into what we're being told, because, again, I will say most witches that have been demonized were healers, talked to animals. You know, they weren't mathematicians and astrologers. They were more like scientists, elemental scientists, than these evil baby eating. That's all part of, actually, a lot of that stuff is in mainstream, what we consider the godly religions. These sacrificial, really unhumane practices. So that's kind of a bummer. You can look that up too. There's all kinds of information coming out about this. Okay, so before I go, yeah, I've said it before, and there's like a short video on YouTube of a guy who names all the mountains in the Grand Canyon. So it's like the Temple of Isis, the Temple of Osiris in the Grand Canyon. And you can look that up. You can actually, I think in general, you can look up the names of the mountains in the Grand Canyon. It should be available. But she wanted me to talk about some of the energy right now. And so time, one of them is time. I don't know if you guys have noticed, I mentioned this about a year ago, but everything's going by so much faster. And they're talking about like time is speeding up. But what I think is happening is like we're catching up to the understanding that time is an illusion. And so as that's happening, it feels like everything's speeding up is a theory, is kind of what she was saying. We're going to be seeing a lot of distractions, and part of the programming for a lot of the distractions are the some of the technology and apps that have come out that shorten our attention span. I'm included in this. Like if I watch too many Instagram shorts or YouTube shorts, then I feel like I'm trying to hurry through everything. But one of the things that can help you or people who might have short attention spans is drawing or coloring as you're listening, because some of the people here who are easily distracted, so I think they know this. Some of the people here on this realm who are easily distracted are actually multitaskers. So they're able to do at least 2 to 5 things, like mentally and physically at once. And that can be highly productive. So when you are distracted and you're not able to focus, it can affect the other things that you highly focus on. And so if you get these little blips of kind of like attention grasping things, and then they move on, and you're not doing something that keeps you still kind of focused in the moment, it can kind of bring an energy of like confusion, fogginess, forgetfulness. These are on purpose to just kind of keep us from focusing on moving up or growing or hiring our awareness. And then, well, you saw my other video, but she's warning about the global warming agenda and politics. Just to be aware, use really good discernment, check things out, ask questions, think about things. This is something that came to my mind the other day. So they're talking about making everything electric cars. Well, what about the tires? And what about all the gadgets inside the car? Aren't those made by oil? Plastics? And what about like an oil change? Are they removing all oil from transmissions and motors? Not transmissions. Well, I know in cars they're trying to remove oil from the transmissions. Some cars it works well, some it doesn't. But these are just some thoughts that you know, it doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really make sense. I guess you would say you'd use a lot less oil making tires, but if we keep making cars, you see what I'm saying? Okay. And then put your feet on the ground. Put your feet on the ground. Put your feet on the ground and learn the land around you. Oh, and maps. You can get maps at some like stores, like I think places like Walgreens and Rite Aid will have maps. You might even be able to find some at thrift stores. I don't know if they do that anymore, but become aware of where you live, the land you live at, or the state you live in, the town you live in. That's one of the things she wanted me to share with you guys. Okay. So like, share, subscribe, check out my Patreon. Will also be linked down below. I really want to go into maybe Monday, but I'm going to do a video here on YouTube where we can go a little deeper into the Sibyl's. We can even go into the Sibyl's Oraculum, because I want to share that part of Patreon. And then, oh, right. I did. Yeah. I don't know if you heard me say that, but I know some like hybrid cars are getting rid of the transmission. But what about the motor? Does it still require oil? And then where are we at with, remember steam motors, steam engines, water? I know, sadly, a man that invented or recreated, I think, because he had figured it out. Somebody else had figured it out before, how to run the car engine on water. And you've heard about the other ones that run their engines on like vegetable oil, but it's not really vegetable oil. Oh, there's so many things. Anyhow, thanks for saying that. And no oil in electric cars. Okay. They do have tires, right? Right. So, and our tires are made from petroleum. So these were just things I thought about. Right. There's no oil in electric cars. That's why they're electric. I know in some of the hybrids, they're like in between. But it was just, I don't know if you know this, but California, and I don't know what other states are trying to eliminate gas cars. But then we're still working on, you still have tires and all the plastic, which comes from petroleum oil. So it's just something that made me go, because along with the, idea to help us save the planet. One of the things we could do is stop making cars. I don't know, just throwing that out there. Like, we have so many cars. How are we going to get rid of them? Where are they going? What do we do with that? Okay. So, and then I also want to do a video. So yeah, I'll do a video on the intuitive muscle exercises as well here on YouTube. So you guys can learn a little bit more about that and participate and see if you're interested in checking me out on Patreon. All right, so thanks for being here today. I'm going to do some music before I go, so you might want to turn on your headphones if you're listening to headphones. Music, sound, symbol. All right. Until next time, take care of you, yourself, and that which isn't important to you. Okay?